Hi there, everyone. Hello, 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 wherever you are. I am just glad you're tuning in with us today. My name is Carla. I'm your relationship doula, helping women and men bravely birth peace in the pieces of their lives. And we have another conversation with Carla this month, December. It's going to be our last one for the year. And I just thought, let's talk about a topic that many people don't want to talk about: money, budgeting. And so I have with us Claresha. Is that right? Did I get it right?
Claresha.
Clarisha, Clarisha, and I'm gonna get that name together. Claresha Blair and Clarisha. Introduce yourself to our guests, please.
Okay, I'm Claresha Blair. I am the owner of CB Tax Services LLC, headquartered here in Orlando, Florida. Currently, I offer, with everything going on, virtual tax services, whether it's actual preparation, planning, strategy, as well as small business accounting.
Okay, I love that. And so I thought I was going to have this young person on because I love how she's doing her thing. And I thought to close out the month of December, the year, we talk about money and budgeting, taxes coming up in the new year, so we can kind of be ahead of the game. Now, so many things have happened this year, guys, and some of you have lost your jobs. Some of you are working part time. And so money has been it's an issue. What do we do for Christmas? What can I give, or what do I do? So we're just going to talk about different things. So feel free to just jump in if you have any thoughts or questions that you want to ask us. And we're going to get right on into it. Now, tell me how you got into accounting and budgeting and money. What drew you to that area?
Okay, so this is a question that I get quite often, and it's kind of cute. So I've wanted to be an accountant since I was like 7.
Hmm.
You know how some people want to be doctors, lawyers. No, I didn't want to do any of that. I watched my mom, who is the treasurer for our church, handling money, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Little girl, everyone wants, well, not everyone, but most of the time you want to be like your mom.
Mhm.
And so I remember, like, as I got older, when she was teaching me how to count, she would say, okay, I want you to count this and then tell me how much it is. And so that would be, some way that we would bond. So, like,
Mhm.
as I'm learning how to count, we're having like those memories. And then I remember sometimes, like, at the store, when she would pay in cash, she would say, okay, tell me how much the change will be. So just always having like money, like, I guess, in the background, like even
Mhm.
as a child, like it just kind of made sense that
Mhm.
accounting would come up. And so how I got into taxes, everyone finds out, oh, your major is accounting. Yeah, you're gonna do my taxes. And I'm like, no, that's not the accounting that I do. But eventually, I had friends like asking me about like tax questions, and I was like, oh, it's simple. Like, all you have to do is this, this, and this. And they're like, yeah, no, I don't get it. So, like, I started out with
Mhm.
family doing their taxes. And then eventually I was like, why not? Why not share this gift with
Mhm.
everyone else?
Mhm.
And that's kind of how I kind of just like merged into having my own tax company.
And I said, I love that when you're talking about that memory with your mom and
Mhm.
seeing her being the church treasurer. It's interesting you say that. My grandmother was
Mhm.
the church treasurer for hers. And I remember as well, too, them counting and setting
Yes,
out the things by tens. And it's so
yes.
funny. I, I started working with my church in the treasury, and they didn't
Mhm.
do that. They didn't split theirs into 10. They would count things all over again. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not how you do it. You're
You're
supposed to
doing
put
it
it
wrong.
right. You're supposed to put it in stacks of tens or 20s or
Mhm.
different things when you're doing your dimes or your pennies, so that you don't have to count all over again. And I was so frustrated with that. But that's a memory that I've forgotten about until you mentioned that. So
Mhm.
learning how to count. So people out there, counting is fundamental.
Yes.
Sometimes I go to a cash register and the young person doesn't know how to count out your change. It's like they're looking at the machine to see how much, and that's
Mhm.
fine. But normally you will count it out. It's like, okay, if your change is $2.50, they say, okay, your purchase was 250, here to 60, 70, 80, to just make sure you got
Right.
back the correct
Correct.
amount.
Yes.
Okay, so that began your journey with money and doing it. As a child growing up, did you see your parents living on a budget? Was it talked about? Was money talked about?
Yes. So I remember very vividly my mother each month, she would have her piece of paper and she wrote down each line item bill and how much it would be, as well as, how much she got paid. So, like, that's how I learned how to budget. So, whenever I got
Mhm,
to college and I had my own bills, I was paying rent and my own phone bill, making sure that I didn't have to call back every month or every couple of weeks, like, Mom, I ran out of money. So, that's, I think something that's very important for parents to
mhm,
do with their kids.
mhm,
I think a lot of times parents want to shield their kids from the notion of bills and having to, deal with finances, but it's important that they understand, okay, you have to be accountable for what you
mhm,
owe each month.
mhm,
So
mhm.
I had that exposure.
And I said that is so important because many times, as you say, parents don't want to talk about finance with their children. And so they think that money grows on trees and that they can just have anything they want.
Yes.
I've heard some of my friends talking about trying to get some gift PS5 for people, whatever. And when I looked and saw how much that was, I'm like, oh my goodness. Do these children know what kind of money this is?
Right, right.
But learning how to budget and knowing the value of money is so
Mhm.
important. And the earlier you can expose your children to learning on a living on a budget is just priceless, guys. So that's something that I definitely um, want you guys to think about. I'm going to be sharing in the links how to create a step-by-step budget. I found this wonderful blog, and I'm going to put that in the comments section. So those of you who are saying, "Well, I don't know how to live on a budget. This is new to me." You normally just either live on a credit cards, or you may decide to do those advance loans, and it's so disastrous in our community sometimes when we see those things and those quickie loans.
Mhm.
um, so learning to live on a budget and learning to live within your means is really priceless. And I know it may seem difficult, but you can still have fun and live on a budget. So I was talking earlier because I know you love to travel, you love to do things, but you still know how to do those things um, in an economical way. So share with us, tell us one of your recent purchase that you did for a flight.
So I am a flight at all costs type of person. I know some people, it's nothing to them to drive. I have a cousin. Her sister lives in, I think it's North Carolina, and it's nothing for her to hop in the car and drive. Meanwhile,
Mhm,
I personally, if you're familiar with Florida, Orlando is 3 hours away from Miami. I dread it. So at any cost, if I can fly, I will. So I learned actually from a friend that whenever you're trying to book a flight, to use Google Flights. And usually with Google Flights, you can input either just the day range or you can input your destination and it'll show you the cheapest flights. So, with coronavirus and not many people wanting to travel, flights have been cheap regardless. But I guess I had my own personal record. A couple of weeks ago, unfortunately, we had a death in the family, so we had to make an impromptu trip to Philadelphia. And money's been a little tight. We're getting into the holiday season, so you're not trying to spend vicariously. So I was like, okay, we have to do, pay our respects. And I logged on to Google Flights, and much to my surprise, um, there were $33 round trip prices from Orlando to Philadelphia. So I would say that's a record for me.
I love it. I love it. So again, sometimes just knowing those secrets, because I've never used Google Flight. I
Yes,
hadn't heard of that one.
Google
I've
Flights is
done
the way
other ones.
to go.
Oh, so I'm gonna have to try to type that one in there and see Google Flights just for people, and it's just
hmm
googleflights.com. Okay, I'm gonna put that in the comment section, guys. Um, but I just love it because we are all living with fewer means.
Yes,
Some of you have lost your jobs. There have been creative ways that you've had to do money because your unemployment is not that much. So we understand. So now with Christmas coming, share with me some ideas if you have any of what different people could do for the holiday seasons if money is a little tight.
so personally, I enjoy DIY. I think it's kind of therapeutic to craft something. And then with YouTube, you don't even have to be an expert yourself. You literally can just log on to YouTube. I guarantee you right now, if you go onto YouTube and you type in DIY Christmas gifts, you
Um,
can easily
yeah,
find plenty of
just
videos on how to do, I don't know, like the probably nicest
yeah,
gift, something that you couldn't even find in store just from Dollar Tree items. I'm getting married next year.
yeah,
So
yeah.
literally, I was on YouTube for like hours, literally just going from video to video of how to create, some wedding signs and different pieces that people are spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on to pay someone
Mhm,
else to do it. Whereas
mhm,
literally here are these people that are literally just going into Dollar Tree or Michael's or
mhm.
Hobby Lobby and creating the same thing, sometimes
Um,
even better
yeah.
for minimal dollars. So I think if you really are having a hard time and, buying gifts, especially if you have a long gift list, you have to buy for this niece and this nephew and then this
Mhm.
cousin and extended family members, I think you could definitely go that route.
And
Mhm.
I love that you said that for the DIY, do it yourself projects, because and that's another thing when you mentioned you're getting married next year. And so you're definitely keeping a budget in mind and being creative, because it's not like if you have a $20,000, $30,000 budget, this is
Right.
not, saying yes to the dress and you have your dress is $5,000, your budget is like 50. It's just like,
hmm
no, we're going to have to do this, but it's going to look like we spent 10,000 because it still
right.
can look like that on a budget with DIY. And I love that. I remember when my children were younger, we did bird seed feeders out of pine cones. They did
Mhm.
DIY gifts for the grandparents,
Yes.
um, and those do it makes it so much more personal when
Right.
you
Right.
do that for them to do that. So for those of you who may have lost your jobs, you can still enjoy the holidays with family and friend virtually, because again, where you are, it still may not be safe to
Right.
mingle, but having I've seen people have their wine tasting via Zoom. So
Yes.
okay, this is not wine, but pretend, they're just doing their tasting. You can do your own gift giving to yourself and open it in front of other people on your virtual
Right.
Zoom call or FaceTime call. But I love the idea of being the DIY gifts. And so Louis Lindita says, love that DIY. My good friend did that for her wedding. I'll send you the link for her page for idea. So she's going to send you that
Appreciate
link. Oh,
it.
great. So we have those different things that we are talking about. I also want you guys to let you know during the holidays, it's even more stressful with finances. finances and relationships because things can be stressful. Whether you realize it or not, finance is the biggest cause of breakups in marriages and relationships. So I want you guys to keep in mind what's happening now, especially with COVID and people losing their jobs, to just keep that in mind and be a little bit more compassionate towards each other during this time because it could be stressful. Reach out to someone if you need some help. So now I wanted us to talk about a little bit about taxes as well too, because I know that's one of the services that you offer. And I think that every young person should know how to do their taxes. Just
Mm-hmm.
like I think everyone should know how to do their hair, but sometimes I don't want to do my hair. I want somebody else to do it. But at least I know how to do it. So that's what we need to do. And I love that you are going to give us some information there. So Lewis says, any advice for couples when one is a saver and the other is a spender? Have you have you have you any thoughts on that?
So I think all in all, the other person who is, so if we're saying the spender is the problem, we're making that assumption. I think the spender has to be willing to be cognizant of how saving can be beneficial and first commit to that. And then if they actually really do have challenges, I think, if that person is a competitive person, you can play on that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, I remember like I used to have an addiction to red velvet cheesecake. So I remember I started out by just, not eating one a week. If I was having 3 a week, I said, okay, I'm only going to have 2 a week. So I feel like you could apply that as well. If you usually have, an impulse buy, like say coffee is your impulse buy, well, maybe start by not having coffee 7 out of the 7 days
Mm-hmm.
a week.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it may sound childish, but start a little wall, something like that to, really just give yourself kudos for, because people, they may not think about it, but oftentimes it's kind of like a comfort tool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having this stressful situation in my life, so I can reward myself with this, or
Mm-hmm.
this is
Mm-hmm.
something that I can control. So I
Mm-hmm.
think to really, think about mentally how that's playing on you and try to flip the script a little bit. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's probably the best advice that I have if the spender is the problem.
And again, I put in a blog here from Dave Ramsey about the secret to saving money because one of the things that I've realized too is that the couple need to have a goal. You need to have a goal as well. So you need some incentive. I know sometimes I've watched some shows on divorce court and they're fighting about the money and all of that. And the other one's like, oh, they're too cheap. And the other one is, oh, they spend too much. And each one of us are going to be coming to the relationship based on our upbringing. If there was plenty, we don't have a spirit of lack. But if there was lack, we have a fear that we won't have enough. And so you have to understand that with the person who you're in relationship with. If they knew that they grew up and the lights went out and their bills weren't paid, their parents didn't pay their bill, you could imagine that they're fearful that that's going to happen to them. So to them, it's like, it's more than to have more than enough in the bank is maybe extreme for them, but knowing that for your partner, but knowing if you have a goal that you're saving up to, if you're saving to do a trip to purchase a home, if you're deciding and say you've already purchased a home and he's like, well, oh, I've gotten what I want, I can just spend. You
Mm-hmm.
can set another goal. It's like, oh, I want to have a goal to have rental property.
Yes.
Oh, I want to have a goal to leave a legacy for my children, my grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
So, setting a goal for many of us, we've lived from paycheck to paycheck. But if we sit down and start to say having a goal and living with
Right.
a budget, you know that the money you're putting aside it's for a purpose. And so therefore you're willing to do that. So guys, definitely check out the blog on The Secret to Saving Money. It has some great tips on how you can um, save money in different little ways. I know uh, I won't get into it, but my husband, Amazon, we get a delivery three,
Ah,
four times. I won't say any more right now because he's not here to defend himself. So I will not have that conversation, but I do understand how that goes. But now we were going to be talking about taxes and what people need to be getting ready for as the end of the year is coming up, what
mhm.
documents they should have on hand, if they want to use a virtual bookkeeper like you, what information is useful for them to have, and I know you have that service too where people can, you could do it monthly for them, where you're managing those books for them so
Mhm.
that at the end of the year, they don't have a whole lot to worry about. So, for those who are coming to the end of the year, what are some things they definitely need to make sure they have in order for the tax season coming up in 2021?
So I'll say first, knowledge is power. Your tax accountant, if you choose to use a professional, is not a mind reader. um, so to do your own, just I mean, like you posted, there's several like pages and blogs out there. Just for you to do your own research. I know I provide my clients a tax checklist just so they're aware of what they could potentially deduct or what they um, could actually save on. Like if this is my first time meeting you, I may not know that you bought a house and that you're going to have deductions that you can use. I mean, oftentimes you get those forms and things in the mail, but if there's an issue and you never got those documents, how do you know? How do I know? So I
Mm-hmm.
would say first, knowledge is power, and now is the time that you want to make sure that if you have a business, you have collected all of those expenses that you'll need to file. Because I have a client, I won't say his name, but for the past 2 years now, I think he's actually lost out on savings because he, unfortunately, is very well, not unfortunately, but he's very busy in his day to day business. So sometimes the actual bookkeeping falls behind. So
Mm-hmm.
scurrying, whenever we get to April 15th to make sure that he has all of his, expenses and different things in order. And, sometimes he said, oh, okay, I think that's it. So really not being sure. But
Mm-hmm.
um, definitely there has been a lot of changes with the coronavirus. I know one of the main things now that people weren't even aware of is that with charitable contributions, usually people think, oh, okay, I don't itemize my deductions, so I can't take it. But this year, trying to encourage people to donate more, especially if they haven't, they've been blessed to, be an essential in
Mm-hmm.
their full time to go ahead and continue to donate and give. So if you take the standard deduction, you are actually able to deduct up to $300 of your charitable contributions as well, which you haven't been able to do in years prior.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So I know many times too, people you may have changed jobs, I mean,
Mhm.
moved addresses. So definitely making sure that your former employer, if you moved, have your current address so that they can make sure that all of your tax documents come to you or have your forwarding address to wherever you move to so they can definitely find you in order to make sure that all of your tax information follows you wherever you are, because that's so important in making sure that you
Yes.
file your taxes and have it done correctly. Now, do you have any horror stories of people who expect to get such a huge refund back when it really isn't one that they qualify for and they're upset with you about?
No, not horror stories. Most of my clients are, how do I say it? Realistic. So, and then I try to explain to my clients as well, I break it down for them, like how it actually works, and to say, okay, the
Mm-hmm.
goal is for during the year for you to pay only what you owe.
Mm-hmm.
If you're getting back a huge refund and it's not actually due to credits,
Mm-hmm.
then you're just handing out money that you could have honestly used to pay off debt that was accruing interest. You could have
Mm-hmm.
used that money to have extra spending money on a vacation. So it's very important that, if you're not comfortable with filling out your tax withholding sheet, that you do consult a
Mm-hmm.
professional so that, you're not like, okay, I didn't pay enough or I paid too much
Mm-hmm.
when it actually comes down to it. Because that's the actual goal. The goal is to net zero. So
Mm-hmm.
um, that's just my advice.
Okay, okay, great. Because I like that, because that's that W
W-4.
four, the
Hmm.
W-4 that you fill out to say how many dependents or exemptions you would qualify for, so that you could always adjust that during the year if you found out, like you said, you're giving the government a loan because they have your money,
Hmm.
and we don't want to do that. So what other you, as a young professional who, you're doing their monies and their taxes, for your clients, do they normally, do you recommend that they use a particular accounting software, or is that what they do if they just send you their bank statements each month and you're able to do that for them?
So both.
Okay.
There are some clients that, I'm not impartial to anybody. So if you if you can't afford my services, then hey,
Mhm.
I do recommend though that they use a free software. ZipBooks
Okay.
is a pretty user friendly interface that, if you're literally only have maybe two ex- 2 to 5 expenses a month. You're not overflowing in invoices, and that's something that I feel as though you can't
Mhm.
use. But then if you're like some of my other clients and they're just wrapped up in the day to day and they don't have time for that, then I definitely use my software to make sure that they are up to date and they have their profit and loss statements.
Mhm.
I can advise them that, hey, maybe you would want to consider, saving on your expenses here because, one of the things they teach us in business is you want to increase your profits. The first thing you should do is take a look at your expenses and see how you can reduce them. If
Okay.
your lease on the building or the warehouse that you're using is coming up, then, it may be worth it to spend some extra time, looking to see if you can find another building or another lease that will charge lower rent. And then therefore, you have excess funds to
Mhm.
maybe fulfill more inventory or, other things like that.
Now, I wasn't familiar. What's that one? I wanted to type it in there. What's that free software you said that the smaller ones can use? Zip?
Zip books, ZIP books, all one word.
Okay, Zip Books. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna put it out there so that others, coming along, if you're a small business, and you're doing your own books, she recommends Zip Books. And again, any little tip helps. So as you're growing and once it becomes too big for you, again, reaching out to someone else to
Mhm.
handle the day-to-day or the financial part in there, because that's what I love when I see the different things coming, because I'm late to the game doing business on my being an entrepreneur myself, but I love when I realize there's a task that I don't like to do, like my social media. So, I found someone who can help me with that. So if I could do it, I would, but I don't like doing it. It's not me. And so when we're sharing these things with you guys, yes, you may be able to do it yourself, but if life becomes too busy and your time is money, it
Yeah.
is cheaper for you to invest in someone else's services to do a particular part of your business. But again, having someone who will be able to show you where the numbers are, what it is to help you to thrive and to grow your business is what we're excited about, because money, I remember too, one of the things I was fearful with money, because growing up you would hear people misquote and says the love of money, or money is bad, but we forget is that when you make it an idol, but it can be something that will serve its purpose for all we want to do. If we want to be the next Bill Gates philanthropist or whatever and have these different foundations, we can have it too. Start somewhere small, grow, have someone who is giving us great advice on how to diversify our portfolio and things that we never thought about, instead of but now we can have someone to just give us some more information on how to do that. So, if there are any other questions, definitely jump in there, guys, and put that in. But I like the one for the zip book. Now, one of the things that I liked in the link that I shared with the David Ramsey, one of the things he mentioned too is about dealing with debt. So, for those who may have made some life happened, and so you found yourself living on your credit cards, because I know especially now too, more people may find themselves living with credit cards, trying to pay bills. But he has this wonderful spreadsheet there for the debt snowball, like a spread tool that they can use. So for people who found themselves in debt, what can we what what have you told, or what kind of advice do you give people who may have found themselves, do they just give up?
No, that's the important part, is to not give up. Like you mentioned earlier, just to set a goal. Um,
Mhm,
because unfortunately, the debt's not going anywhere.
mhm,
So
mhm,
I know that I've read, you want to start with the greatest interest debt, and
mhm,
then that's the debt that you want to attack.
mhm,
Because unlike people say, the time is going to pass irregardless. You might as well, get a handle on it. Even if it's only 20, you can only start with $20 a month.
mhm, mhm,
Just actually putting something into the debt, so that it's not just continuing to, like you said, snowball
mhm,
and take over. Because at some point, you'll need to apply for something, whether it's a loan for a home, a car. You don't want to have the burden of high interest just because your credit score is low, your debt to income ratio is terrible. So, and I know there's like plenty of articles out there that break it down for you, how exactly to put your debt into a spreadsheet and which debt you should start with. And even now, many credit card companies, they have that tool where you
mhm,
can say, okay, I want to pay the balance off in this amount of years, or I can put forward this amount monthly.
mhm,
And I think that's where it goes back to making sure that your withholding tax is in line, because you're allowing this debt to just accrue interest and build up when, even if it's only 50 or 100 more dollars on your check,
mhm.
that can stop you from having to pay additional money in interest, because I hate interest. It's just money that you're just throwing away.
Wait, yeah.
So that's
Mhm.
that's my
Okay. And
advice
I
for
think with everything that's happening, again, like she says, you could talk with your credit card companies, seeing about them reducing your interest rate. But sometimes you may not have that option because
that.
yours is already uh, in collections or you're behind. But so I just want you to know, though, you can always call them and you can always definitely Google people who help you with debt for that. But keep in mind during this time of the year, as little bit as possible, just be careful of that. I read an article the other day of a man somewhere in Florida, and he paid the
Yes.
delinquent bills for, I think it was electric. It was one
Mhm.
of the utility bills that
Yes.
he paid for over 100 people, and he said he'd had a good year, and this wasn't the first time he did it. He did it prior. So some of you out there have been blessed, and you may be that secret Santa angel
Mhm.
to just help someone else who's having a hard time right now for various reasons. And I always like to err on the side of compassion. So this year, my gift to people is just even more so compassion. We don't know what people are going through. And so financially with the budget, you may have had an expectation for a particular gift or a particular something and it doesn't happen, please don't get upset with that spouse, with that parent for not getting that, because this year has been, it's just been a different year. And we need to be, the gift of love and compassion is the best gift that you guys can do this year to yourselves and for each other. So, the other thing I wanted to ask about is, again, going back to taxes and people who are running their own businesses.
Mhm.
What are some of the questions they need to make sure they ask their accountant or that person who is going to be doing their books for them? Because how do they know if they really have someone who knows what they're doing?
Right. So I would personally, I don't know, I've never been on this side before. I would probably ask how many clients they already have, because
Hmm.
that's important too. Um, during the year, if you need to get a number right off the bat, you want to make sure that your accountant is someone who is up to date with your books, and so that you're not having to, wait days or weeks for them to catch up. You want to be able to know, okay, the month of March ended, and so maybe by the 7th of April, you know where you're standing with your profit and loss statements. Because for a lot of businesses, um, that is very important. It's important for them to know uh, necessarily how much they can spend in inventory
Hmm.
for their next order. It's important for them to know if they're going to be able to make payroll for that month.
Hmm.
Those are
Hmm.
the things that you pay your accountant to be able to help you with, because
Hmm.
it's probably not a good feeling to go ahead and make promises and then your accountant's scratching their head like, you probably should have talked to me before you did that. And then being able to have that open communication with your accountant. Um, this isn't my full time gig, but I
Hmm.
have a full time gig that allows me to do this part time. I wouldn't recommend you using an accountant that is overwhelmed in their full time job if that is their side hustle, because whenever you call your accountant, you may not be able to get them right at that moment, but you
Hmm.
want to know that it's later that day or the following morning that next day that you can actually get them, because a lot of times in business, like you're making deals and the opportunity doesn't last for
Right.
that long. So you don't
Hmm.
want to sell an opportunity because, the person that you have taking care of your finances isn't available to you.
Yeah.
Oh, and back to your back to your
Uh-huh.
debt question. It literally just came to me as you were talking. I would suggest that people that do have collections reach out to their bank, because sometimes your bank will offer services where they'll actually work with you to mail those different lenders that you have collections with to get those collections taken off of your report. And so that
Okay.
times that will help and boost your credit score as well. And it's a free service sometimes. So the more you know.
Mhm. And I know I put you on the spot when I asked what it is they should expect of you, but what do you expect of your client? Because I could imagine that some people I know wait until the day before the deadline and expect their accountant to have their taxes ready the day before. They come in with just their receipts, not even together, and expect you to just, wiggle your nose and voila, have their taxes done. So what do you expect of a good business owner or a person to make sure that they are giving you the time to that you need in order to make those deadlines, and what is their responsibility to make sure what they need to get to you?
So I try to extend grace as much as
Mhm.
possible. I've been blessed to work with people and to help them make informed decisions. A lot of people begin their entrepreneurship without a lot of business knowledge.
Mhm.
So some people don't even know the difference between an LLC and a sole proprietorship. And so for me, it's rewarding to be able to explain that to them. Um,
Mhm.
I try to be as honest as possible about when I can get back to them on their taxes. I tell them, okay, the deadline is April 15th. It is April 14th. I have other clients that I have been assisting in finishing up. So it may or may not be by April 15th that I will file.
Mhm.
And then I tax them in my own way. If you reach out to me on April 15th, there is an additional late fee for you waiting to the last minute, because
Mhm.
you're expecting this service to be done by the deadline, and it's quote unquote not fair that everyone else who was actually timely and got their documents in when they were supposed to be pushed to the side because you're in an urgency and in a haste.
Mhm.
So I am very candid with clients and let them know from the beginning just so that they can adjust their expectations. So at the end of the day, they're not calling me like, hey, is it done yet? Hey, is it done yet? Well, I already
Mhm.
let you know from the beginning. So whether you choose to continue with my services or not, I would love to service you. But if you need
Mhm.
to find someone else, then
Mhm.
that's how it goes.
Oh wow, I love that. And because yes, sometimes as an accountant, you have to be the one to tell people bad news, when you tell them, "Hey, you don't have as your income and your expenses aren't lining up, and so this is the bottom line." And
Mhm.
so I think just like when we get a plumber or some other kind of job that we hate getting the bad news from, that's what your accountant does. Your accountant, what you do for them is just tell them, hey, you may think you want to expand and do this and that, but the numbers don't lie because it's just hard cold facts. You can't pull anything out of zero. It's just like, nope, you're at negative or you will be at negative such and such if you do X, Y, and Z. So you appear that you're kind of pleasant. So how do you have those difficult conversations? I know you say you definitely want to keep your business owners that you work with informed, but having those, I know you say they appreciate that. So I guess it's different. You don't necessarily, you get to choose who you work with. So you may not have a client who's going to get huffy with you about when you tell them what the numbers are going to say.
Yes. So, um, thankfully, everyone that I have worked with, I either know or they were referred to me by someone that I know. So that I think makes it easier. to work
Mhm.
with people because there's kind of a sense of, how do I
It's a
say,
relationship
trust.
kind of a thing? Okay.
There's that trust there already, and um, I think even with family members and friends that I do service, keeping that professionalism from the jump. Whenever I email, I say good morning, good evening, good afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. So and so,
Mhm.
letting you know that I am not Claresha, your niece, or Claresha, your cousin. I am Claresha, owner of CB Tax Services LLC. And I think that kind of, puts things into the perspective of, anything that I'm saying to you, it's from my professional opinion and not the personal. Um,
Mhm.
but then, I do have good moments where I'm able to help people as well. I had a client that for the last 2 years, they were actually owing. And so whenever they came to me, thankfully they came to me not on April 15th. So I was able to work with them, which I try to do with each client. I say, okay, hey, here's the situation. Here's what we can try to do. If you can think of any more items that you can deduct or any credits that you might, uh, what's the word, uh, apply for.
Mhm.
So that's something that I enjoy from my perspective, being able to, my slogan is raising the standard that,
Mhm.
it's not just an HR block experience where you walk in, you give them the documents, and it is what it is. Um,
Mhm.
so back to the client that I was able to help, turns out she was owing because with her income and her spouse's income was from Social Security, and so the Social Security benefits, they weren't paying taxes on. So I was like, okay, here's what we'll do. We'll try and have you all file married filing separately. And
Mhm.
at that point, she received a refund and he didn't owe anything at all. So it's
Mhm.
those experiences where it's like, okay, you can make a difference. Like, I'm not a surgeon where I'm saving someone's life, but finances are a great deal of someone's life as well. So if I'm able to, help them in
Mhm.
their financial circumstances, it's rewarding for me as
Mhm. I think so too. And like you said, you may not be a surgeon,
well.
but for them, that was priceless.
Hmm.
It was life saving. And so having someone who will hear your situation and explore what are the options for that person, that is just excellent. So I love that you were able to do that for them. And so I see we're winding down. The time is has come back. So I'm just going to do a wrap up. We talked about different things that you guys can do for the holiday seasons, the DIY ideas when it comes to Christmas gifts and different things because money is tight. And so, therefore, we can be creative in how we're going to do this. This is one of the ideas shared. We also have that blog post that you guys can look at for David Ramsey on how to save money and knowing where and what you want to save it for, which is really important. And be careful not to just have fights over money because that can be very stressful in in a relationships. And I like how you're going to be doing your own DIY for your own wedding coming up and just being creative to do that. So when we've been talking about budget, money, and taxes, we understand everybody could do their own, but if you want someone else to do it for you who's just a little bit more knowledgeable, um, then we definitely want you to be able to reach out. So please share again with our audience what your services are, how they can find you on social media as well too.
So everything is CB Tax Services LLC. I am available on Facebook and Instagram. My email address is simple, cbtaxservicesllc@gmail.com. If you have any questions, I'm open to helping. I know a lot of people had questions about, the stimulus check. think the official name for it is the Recovery Rebate Credit. Oh, I did want to mention that if you did not receive that money, so definitely check on the IRS website. There's a tool there where you can track it. You won't have to pay it back if there's any type of discrepancies between, okay, you should have received this much, but like say you should have received 1,000, but you received 1,200, you won't have to pay that back. They took the information based off of your 2019 year, but basically it's supposed to be based off of 2020. So I know my sister personally had a child, so there's an additional credit that she should have received. Just make sure that whenever you're filing your taxes, whether you do it with a professional or you do it yourself, that you're making sure that in those instances that you do receive that money, because it's free money. And as we mentioned, everyone is, in different financial circumstances this year. So don't want to leave that on the table.
I forgot to mention it, but I'm sure maybe some of your clients may have gotten that PP loan as well
Yes.
too. And so having someone who knows about that, because there was a deadline for some people to file in order for that to be forgiven if it was used for its purposes. I think it was rent, for wages, and
Payroll,
something.
payroll, rent,
Mhm.
different expenses like
So
utilities, I believe.
So
Yes.
that was very important, because if you had an accountant during that time, they would definitely help you, because there was a deadline that you were supposed to now submit these different things to your bank or whoever that source who funded that for you, so that you can get that forgiveness for that. So that's the beauty if you have an accountant or someone who was able to help you. I know many people were trying to apply for that and they were having a hard time. So again, having someone to help you navigate that. I'm not sure what they're going to do for 2021. And so having someone like an accountant for you to confer with and talk with about, to see whether or not your business qualifies for that. Because um, we were talking earlier about some of us may want to be able to only pay $750, like our leader has done. But if you get too creative, you may end up in jail.
Right.
But just knowing what you truly can qualify for is a blessing. To know that, and that's what you definitely provide and can share with people, because the system is there so that you can. There are different tax credits and refundable credits and different things that are there for you, but you just need to make sure you're doing it correctly, and having someone who knows what to ask for, what documents you may need, so that you can say, "Hey, this is me. I'm allowed to get this," so that the system can work for you as well too, and that you don't have to end up avoiding 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 jail time because you've gotten too creative with your taxes, because we don't want to go that way and end up in any other situation that we shouldn't. So I'm glad that you mentioned that part too, with that pandemic relief that people got in there. So, any last minute tips that you want to share? And oh, Carmen is saying, awesome job to CB tax services. Can, and because I can't type quickly, but I wanted to be able to put your Facebook site in there. So can one of you guys put that in there so I can share it with the group? So any last few minutes things that you want to throw out there that we may have missed, or just as we wrap up for our last 5 minutes?
Well, since we got into some of the various different tax changes due to coronavirus, I'm not an investment broker, so I can't necessarily advise on that. But I would definitely make sure that you take a look at the different exclusions that they've made. I know right now there's no penalty on withdrawals. Don't want you to make a withdrawal on your retirement plan, but
Mm,
obviously, if you're having to make hard decisions, keep in mind that that penalty is waived for this year. Also, I know, excuse me, uh, what are they called? Required minimum distributions. You don't have to take those this year.
mhm,
I know if you're over the age of 70 and you have a traditional IRA, usually you have to take those starting when you turn 70. But
mhm.
due to coronavirus, you don't have to do that. So just the last minute tidbits. The more you
Yeah. The more you know, the more you do, because that is great. Because normally there is a penalty if you do take out withdraw from your retirement before your age. But like she says, that's one of the things that have been waived due to COVID. Nobody wants to dip into that, but many of you who may have been laid off from your job, I know people who've been laid off since May and haven't been able to find work, and so it's just rough, and so they may have to dip into their retirement fund because that's what they have to do. All their savings are gone now because it's now 4 or 5 months later and they're still unemployed. So those are some of the things, having an accountant to let you know that these are different options that you definitely can explore, that you may not want to do, but you do have the option and you won't be penalized. Normally you would be a 10% penalty on top of your regular taxes for withdrawal from your IRA, from your retirement plan. So that was a great tip. So for those of you out there, definitely follow and check out CB tax tax services. Oops, CB Tax Services LLC. To For any other questions, for a consultation. The wonderful thing with virtual, you can have an accountant anywhere who will do your bookkeeping for you, who can keep your books and records monthly, so that you now can sleep at night knowing that's somebody else's headache. Oh, and they don't see it as a headache. My headache is not somebody else's headache. It's fun for them. It's like, oh, for me, it's a headache. So being able to find someone who can work with you and give you that kind of advice. So, guys, this is our last conversation with Carla for 2020. We will be on vacation for the rest of the month of December, and we will resume in January. I'm excited. I told you guys last week that I am in the process of creating my relationship doula boot camp, and it's going to be a free boot camp. And the first thing we're going to be doing is about forgiveness. I love the series that Mike Todd is doing on Forgiveness University. And if you're like me, sometimes you need tutoring sessions. And so this is going to be done on Wednesdays evenings in a Facebook group. You can always listen to the replay, but the homework will be to look at one of the sessions, and then we're going to be talking about it and unpacking it, because my gift to you for 2021 is to give you tools to recover from 2020. 2020 has been tense for many. Many relationships have been strained because of the political climate, because of the racial climate. And my gift to you is that tutoring service, um, that one on one, just in a group that some of us, if you were like me in college, is like, I don't get it. I need somebody to just go over it with me. It may have been obvious for everybody else. Everybody else may know how to do forgiveness or relationships, but you're having a hard time. So we're going to be doing that with the Relationship Doula Boot Camp. I'll be putting the link on my stress management page so that you guys can sign up and go over to that community. But I want you guys to have a safe and wonderful Christmas holiday season that's coming up. Feel free to reach out if you need any help to deal with your emotions. If you've lost someone and you don't know how you're handling the holidays that are coming up, definitely sign up for a complimentary session. I'm here to hear you because sometimes that's all you need. But my name is Carla. I'm your relationship doula, helping women and men bravely birth peace in the pieces of their lives. And thank you guys for tuning in.